Hey everyone, Samantha Hildebrand here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about how you eat pizza with type 1 diabetes. So recently a lovely lady reached out to me. Her daughter was recently diagnosed, which is terrible, but she reached out to me asking me about pizza. And I know that pizza is a very common question when it comes to type 1 diabetes and how do you eat pizza with type 1 diabetes and how do you stay in range with pizza with type 1 diabetes and all the questions surrounding pizza and foods like pizza, high carb, high fat, things like that. And so today I wanted to do a quick video about how you can eat pizza with type 1 diabetes. And the cool thing is, you guys, you can absolutely eat pizza with type 1 diabetes. So I actually had pizza last night. I love pizza. Who doesn't love pizza though? Really, let's be real. Pizza is super good and there is absolutely no reason why you should give up pizza if you are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Yes, pizza is tough. It is definitely a tough food to bolus for. It's a tough food to manage if you live with type 1 diabetes, which is super frustrating and super annoying, especially if you're first diagnosed or if you're recently diagnosed and you haven't really tried pizza, or maybe you have tried pizza and you're lost on how to eat pizza and stay in range and all of that. It's really annoying and frustrating that we even have to go through this, but guess what? Type 1 diabetes is not going away. And so you should absolutely continue to eat pizza and just figure out how to bolus for it. So the first thing I want to bring up is that every pizza is different, which also makes it very challenging. It really just depends on the type of pizza you are eating. And so, for example, the pizza that I have here is a very thin crust pizza, which in my opinion is more beneficial for type 1 diabetics because it's not like it's like a really thick carby crust. And even on this pizza, I would say there's not a ton of cheese. Yes, there of course is still cheese because it's pizza, but some other pizzas definitely are loaded with cheese. And so once again, that is another high carb, high fat situation where if you choose a pizza kind of like this one that I was holding up, it can be a better option for eating pizza. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't eat the deep dish pizzas. You absolutely can still eat those. It's just going to take different management styles for both types of pizza. I also believe that frozen pizza is completely different than fresh made pizza and how it can affect your blood sugar. So the first thing you need to do is just evaluate what type of pizza am I even eating, because that will definitely make or break you when it comes to your bolus situation. I love thin crust, so it definitely works out in my favor. For example, the pizza that I have here is fresh. It was fresh when we ordered it yesterday. It's a day old though, so I can still consider that fresh. And that, in my opinion, does not affect my blood sugar as much as a frozen pizza does. And once again, this might be different for you and your situation and your specific blood sugars. We are all different and we all have different situations when it comes to our type 1 diabetes. Yes, all of our pancreases are dead, but that doesn't mean that our situations are completely the same. And so take this with a grain of salt. Obviously, you're gonna have to test this out on your own. But for me personally, fresh made pizza does not affect my blood sugar as much as frozen pizza. I had a frozen pizza the other day because I was really craving pizza and I had one in the freezer. So I was like, hey, let's do it. But it actually spiked me pretty bad. And I don't know if it's just because, it's frozen pizza, it's not fresh made. I don't really know why this is the case. The only benefit of frozen pizza is that there is a carb count on the box. So it's literally giving you the carb count information, which is really, really nice. But once again, it's not that simple. You can't just take insulin for the amount of carbs. With pizza, you'll probably drop. If you take, for example, let's say the pizza says 100 grams and your ratio is 1 to 10, you'd have to take 10 units of insulin for this pizza. But if you were to take all those 10 units up front, your blood sugar is most likely going to drop. That's just because pizza is high carb, high fat, which, if you don't know this yet, high carb, high fat foods definitely hit our blood sugars later, right? Like the reason we eat quick acting sugar when we go low is because it hits our bodies really fast. Pizza is not one of those items. It actually hits our blood sugar way later. Once again, it kind of depends on the pizza, but for me, it's like 5 to 7 hours later. 5 to 7 hours later that the pizza hits me. So once again, you have to take that into account. But it is nice for frozen pizzas because it does actually give you the carb count. So you actually know how many carbs are in there. It's now just a situation of how much do you give up front versus how much do you give later. If you're on a pump, you know, you can do a split bolus. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do, but at least with frozen pizza, there is a carb count, but my blood sugar always does worse. And I think it's just because it's like a processed food. My blood sugar does not like processed food, and I'm sure it doesn't like yours either. So just keep that in mind with frozen pizzas. But for fresh pizzas, if you have the option, I recommend just getting thin crust because it just will be more beneficial for your blood sugar. But once again, if you want deep dish, go for it. It just has a lot more carbs and a lot more fat, which means that's, you know, you got to take that into account of one, just how many carbs are even in this. And then two, how much should you take up front versus how much should you take at the end? And I wish I could tell you how much you take up front and how much you take at the end, but I can't. Even I don't really know that yet. And I've had diabetes for over 3 years, almost 4 years now. I still don't really know how much to take up front versus how much to take later. However, for me, this is my situation only. I need to take minimal amount up front and more later on. It's kind of challenging to eat pizza at night because you are gonna have to take insulin later on in the night. And if you're sleeping, sometimes that makes it challenging. However, if you are on a pump, this is when the pump comes in handy because you can schedule a split bolus for later on in the night. Now, I'm on MDI, so I have to manually get up and give myself insulin, which is kind of a pain in the butt sometimes. This is one reason, in my opinion, that pumps are better because you don't have to do that. You can actually schedule that split bolus up to, you know, give you more insulin, like to give you a certain amount up front and then trickle out the insulin over time is how I've heard people do it. Once again, I don't have a pump, so I'm not 100% sure on exactly how that works, but make sure to reach out to somebody with a pump because they would be happy to share with you what they do and how they bolus for pizza. But for me, I actually have to get up and take insulin. Another trick you can do if you want to eat pizza is to eat something else with it. So rather than eating like a massive pizza by yourself that doesn't have that many nutrients in it, right? Because high carb, high fat, you could also eat like a salad with it because that has fiber and that has maybe protein and that just has veggies and other nutrients in it. So another tip that you can do is like maybe eat a side salad or even a full salad and then have a couple slices of pizza versus eating like a massive box of pizza by yourself or by itself. That's just another option, and you will absolutely see benefits from that situation with your blood sugar. So that's another tip that a lot of type 1 diabetics do. And the other way to look at that is that's also just better for your health overall to eat a salad and then some pizza versus like a ton of pizza. So just keep that in mind. That is another option. That helps because once again, it's a lot more nutrients are going through your body. And when you pair protein, fiber, carbs, and fat together, it will be more beneficial for your blood sugar. There also may be sometimes in your life that pizza is going to be even more difficult to manage. For women, that would be during a certain part of your cycle. It's usually the week before you get your period is when that's going to be very challenging because you're experiencing insulin resistance. Yes, there's a name. Is it the luteal phase? I actually don't even know, but it's usually the week before you get your period because that insulin resistance is really kicking in. So certain times like that might be a time you want to avoid pizza. Now, I don't really like to tell people to avoid food, so you can still eat pizza. I'm just telling you that it's going to be a lot more challenging than it would the week of your period, okay? And you'll probably see that over time if you experience it, and try it out. And I do recommend actually trying to eat pizza during that phase before you get your period, because you need to figure it out, right? There's gonna be instances in your life when you're gonna have to eat pizza during that time. And so you might as well try it out and test it out and see what works and what doesn't work. But if you're looking for like, okay, I want a week that I don't have to worry about it as much, that would be the week of your period, okay? So for women, keep that in mind when you're eating pizza. The other time that you are not gonna wanna eat pizza, this is for women and men, is when you're sick. Because if you're sick, once again, we're experiencing insulin resistance, and insulin resistance does not love pizza. And you can take all the insulin in the world and your levels will just stay high, and that's like the worst pain in the world, mentally and physically. So keep that in mind. If you notice you're experiencing insulin resistance, maybe avoid pizza. But once again, if you want to eat it, go for it. It's just an extra tip here for you. However, maybe there's a week where you're like, wow, my insulin sensitivity is super high, like I keep dropping, or whatever the case may be. That might be a time that you want to eat pizza. So that's just another tip, is like, yes, certain days and certain weeks definitely matter with your blood sugar. And so keep that in mind when you're trying to eat pizza. Now, if you're a parent managing a child with type 1 diabetes, first off, just know you're doing an absolute amazing job, okay? Because I live with type 1 diabetes and I can feel the effects happening to me, where if you're managing a child's blood sugar, you don't feel those effects, right? Like you have to watch the kid and be like, like what's happening? You have to be pricking their finger or looking at their Dexcom or whatever tools that you're using. It's a lot harder to manage it on somebody else than it is as a person that lives with it themselves, if that makes sense. So first off, just you're doing an amazing, amazing job. So give yourself credit, okay? Because this is not easy at all. It's not easy for me, let alone you guys. Like I understand how hard it is. And I actually do understand how hard it is to manage other people's blood sugar. I was a camp counselor for a kids diabetes camp, and I had to do it for 3 days. I had to help the kids manage their blood sugar, and it was the hardest 3 days of my life. It was way harder than me managing it myself. So if this is you, first off, you're doing great. Second off, yes, your kid can have pizza, okay? Yes, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Like if anybody tells you they cannot have pizza, just brush those people off and eat the pizza, because your kid deserves pizza, okay? If you're going to eat pizza though, make sure to listen to the tips that I just said and apply those, because I don't want your life to be super stressful when the kid's eating pizza because of all the hard management things going on. Once again, if your kid is on a pump, that is a blessing, because the pump can do a lot of the work for you. Like me, MDI, it's a lot harder. But make sure not to give too much up front, I think is the key, especially if your kid is going to be active also after the pizza. This is the other thing. Obviously, being active will increase your insulin sensitivity and your blood sugar will drop. So like if you're gonna eat pizza and then walk immediately after, or go do an activity after, or like, for example, like maybe you're at a bowling alley and you're eating pizza while bowling, like things like that, you're gonna wanna take even less insulin up front because you're being active. So you have to take all of these things into consideration. And I know, it's so annoying and it's so frustrating when you're with other people that are just living their lives and don't even have to think about blood sugar. We have to think about it for ourselves or our kids or whatever the case may be, and it's a pain in the butt. It just takes a little bit more management and a little bit more thinking, a little bit more math, a little bit more of these things, but you can still eat pizza. So once again, I hope those tips were helpful, and I really wish I could give you more information on how to do it. And I wish I could be like, yes, take this amount of insulin up front and then this amount at the end. But unfortunately, I can't do that because we're all so different in our blood sugar management. And once again, it depends what type of pizza you're eating and all of that. But once you test it out a couple times and you fail, because you need to fail to learn, that's just, how it works, you will be okay eating pizza again. So just keep trying and keep seeing what happens. And if you're a parent that has a kid that is doing it, I know that can be super scary to just like try things, but you have to try things, right? And if you're really nervous, go lower on the insulin, of course. Like we'd rather go high than low. So maybe go a little bit lower on the insulin and just test things out and you will figure it out. Okay, I promise you will figure it out. But anyway, thanks so much for tuning in to today's video. I will see you guys next week. Bye. Make sure to check out the Type 1 Tribe Facebook group. All you gotta do is search Type 1 Tribe in the Facebook search bar to find it. So go do that right now. Also, if you're new to diabetes and you want to learn more about how to lower your A1C, stay in range more often, I have an ebook that I created that has a bunch of information, and it would be super, super beneficial if you're a new diabetic or if you just wanna lower your A1C and stay in range more often. Go check out that ebook. It's linked below, so go get it. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.